Beth, when I feel like I've been told naturally curious, and I know that in me.
Have you always been that way?
I feel, I've always felt like I could go the next 2 hours just asking you questions and feel very comfortable.
That way too.
But I don't know if that's a learned behavior or if that is just innate in people, and I want to get your perspective on it.
Yeah, I've thought a lot about this, and some of the research I'm looking to do is to understand that a little bit more. And again, could AI and some of the new capabilities make us more curious or bring out that curiosity in us, same as creativity? I think there's a spectrum for most of us in most everything, right? I mean, I just think that's the way we are as humans. But I know my father has said to me, he remembers me being 4 and 5 and just like he couldn't get out of the room because I was asking why, and I remember those interactions.
Right.
So I think partly I was that way, but I also can point to parents, great teachers. One of my favorite teachers was my high school teacher who led an experimental class in the humanities in a public high school in Virginia. And he just asked really great questions and allowed us to ask questions. I know I leveled up in curiosity because I had that teacher.
So part of that was just having somebody who inspired you to keep going.
Ask.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he said, okay, I love ancient Greek, and for anyone who's interested, every Monday I'm going to teach you the ancient Greek alphabet, and and I was there. Like, why? I don't know, but I actually liked it.
But right, you were engaged.
Yeah.
What is something that's very popular today that you just fundamentally disagree with?
Well, I think companies exist for a lot of reasons, but they don't exist just to make money for shareholders.
Well put. Yeah.
And I think companies exist to solve a problem in the world. And I think we've kind of got our valuation often a little confused in terms of that. So I wrestle with that a lot, that companies are judged by their stock price or really by their latest quarterly results. So that's something that I fundamentally don't believe in.
Right, and there's such a financial engineering machinery in corporate America. And we have certain companies, I think, would you agree, like Salesforce.com seems to start to look at things a little broader in terms of a social context.
Yeah.
And led by Mark Benioff, their CEO, it seems like there are companies, maybe some tech companies, that are trying to look at purpose and profit and the intersection of those two.
Well, I mean, anyone who's worked in a business realize there are so many stakeholders that are benefiting from the business. I mean, you and I are have been employed by companies.
Yes.
You're helping families and schools. I mean, there are a lot of good. Capitalism in business is a force for good.
Yes.
But why should we be surprised by that? Why should we have to call that out?
Right.
That's the model that business should be in.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that companies like Salesforce and others are doing that. We tried to do a lot of that at GE and clean tech and access to health. But really, should it be so special that we have to call that out?
Right.
I know I met recently with some people who have repositioned their consulting firm to be about purpose. And one, I'm glad they're doing it because people need help, but again, isn't that part of business's role, is to have more of a holistic purpose in the world? And yes, you have to go on making money. I mean, you can't keep doing what you do unless you can make money. I mean, that's essential. But sometimes I worry we lose sight of that. And our customers are the ones that lose sight of that the most. If you're a good business, you're delivering for your customers.
Right.
And everything else should fall into place. Your employees feel they're fulfilling a mission.
Right.
They're able to contribute to their communities. So again, I worry a little bit that if we start with that basic premise, are we getting it right for our customers, then things start to flow from there.
Yeah, and don't you think also, just to your point about it shouldn't be a call out, it should just be the way we do business? Even if you tried to be very pragmatic about it and said, the person that comes to work from 9 to 5 is a different human being from 5 to 9.
Yeah.
And that they play a role or put a mask on. And we lose creativity.
Yeah.
We lose the whole person at work. And what is that in lost potential and value to our organization because they haven't treated the whole person at work?
I know, and people are they bring their issues. They have to take care of their mother, their kids. I remember one of the projects that really affected me when I was at GE is we were looking at healthcare, access to healthcare, and it took us to Saudi Arabia. And one of the things we learned was women were dying of stage 4 breast cancer. We were able to, GE had no share at all in Saudi Arabia at the time in our healthcare business. And we worked with the ministry there, and we were able to come up with a mobile mammography unit because women couldn't drive. So the unit had to come to them.
Right.
And market share grew. It was like 100% in the first couple of years, and we were saving actual lives.
The intersection.
Right. And so that was always, like, those stories exist in every company. You don't have to literally be saving women from dying of breast cancer, but we all have some kind of impact in the work we do, make some kind of livelihood better, and we make profit. So I am hopeful for the day when it's not so exceptional and we don't have to call out and we don't need to call in a purpose consultant because it's what we do. And again, not to disparage them, I'm glad they exist, but I applaud the Benioffs and others of the world who realize that that's their mission.
How do we get to some of these, I often think common sense isn't common practice. You and I could
good way to say it.
Say we've got creativity, curiosity, empathy. Nobody would argue those, but we don't do them, which is frustrating. If I turn the light on me, I don't do it as much as I should. I've intellectualized it, if that's even a word. Like I can say that's right, but until it goes from being in your brain to in your marrow, into your bone, it doesn't really change. And I just wonder, how do you see businesses and professionals creating that change within themselves?
Well, one, I think it's exactly what you said. I think to me, the recognition, and certainly what I learned in my career, is that time, kind of you can't change anything else until you change yourself. I mean, it's an age-old advice that we rarely take, right? You tell everybody else what to do. Anyone who's in a relationship knows that doesn't work. Right? You got to work on yourself. Right. It's just that, and I think that was kind of the epiphany for me, that I got to work on myself. And if everybody starts doing that, and one will make progress. So I think that's a big part of it.
Yep.
And I think it just starts there.
Yep. We have this program's called The Voice of Value. So we always love to ask this question of, and we have this concept, our purpose as a company is that we believe that we find our own value by helping others find theirs. That along the way you become a student of whatever you're delivering out to the world. What has been Beth's unique voice and value?
Yeah, I think this curiosity, this discovery to figure out why, what is, to ask the questions, what is valuable to them.
Right.
The discovery piece, I hope that would be my unique contribution, or at least maybe not so unique, but at least my Beth contribution was to ask why. And bring that to business and not just assume we have all the answers. When we were looking to get into clean tech, I mean, it was really, we did dreaming sessions with our customers. And it was scary. If I go back in time 15 years ago.
Wait, I got to ask about that, Beth. So you're a dreaming session. So you would literally have a GE customer come in.
Yeah, multiple of them together. And the point is that the sales teams were skeptical and scared about making change.
Right.
Not that they didn't believe in solar or wind, they just said, we're going to get ahead of our customers. Our customers aren't ready for it. Well, not every customer was ready, but there were some who were asking for it.
There were early adopters for it.
So we had to bring those customers together, often competitors, and we'd say, okay, like we bring 20 together at a time with our sales team, with our business leaders, and we'd say, let's dream into the future. Let's pair out 10 years. We'll give you virtual currency, GE money, pretend like we're giving you our R&D budget. Where would you invest? Help us think through that. And we did it together. And it wasn't that customers were telling us our strategy, but they were informing it. They were helping, and we were helping them think about it. And so I often found that was just a really great way to think about change, is that you're really kind of imagining change out loud together, and then you kind of take some decisions out of that. And the benefit was that are, especially our salespeople, we're able to see, hey, our customers actually are
have the
there.
capacity for
they're
this
with
and
us.
want to do this.
Yeah, so that fear came out of
Right.
it when they heard it directly from the customers.
Was this when you were chief marketing officer?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you're CMO, you hold these dream sessions. I'm just fascinated.
Yeah.
Were there concrete things that you saw come out of that in terms
Sure.
of, tell me what?
Yeah, so I mean, in this one we launched what we called Ecomagination, but
Yeah.
it was in some cases, okay, are we going to double down and do more investments in wind? Or are you likely to go for solar? There were other technologies, so there was a technological. There was what's the value equation?
Yes.
And our customers for sure in that time said, like, don't come in and give us a lot of expensive equipment because we'll go broke.
Right.
So this isn't an excuse to come in and jam new stuff and
Right.
double your price.
Right.
And so they gave us some challenges too. We had to have it ecological and economical. So out of that came a value proposition.
Wonderful. And to just put the context to certain listeners, back then, the bravery of that choice was GE was very much industrial, Rust Belt, manufacturing engines, not eco-friendly.
Right.
And so this was almost a total pivot.
Well, it wasn't as big a pivot as it might have seemed, and that was one of the other discoveries with this kind of discovery process is we started to say, well, what would an ecological, economical product look like?
Okay.
So you had to build a filter for that,
Right.
working with customers, and then you go, okay, well, what do we have? And oh my gosh, there's actually some things that we have that meet this standard already. So look, we can do this.
Right.
And look at our pipeline that we can accelerate.
Okay.
So often you have more capability than you think. That
Right.
would have been the other discovery out of that. They gave us
Nice.
a little bit more confidence, but not to say it was easy. We had a whole host of, we were not well regarded in the clean
Right.
energy space. There were just a lot of hurdles we had to overcome, and we lost a few customers who didn't want to sign up for that future. They walked away. So you also, in times of change, have to be willing to say this isn't going to work for everybody.
And you make a point in the book about you need to trust your doubts.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Well, I think in this case, we believed confidently in the clean tech future. So there were a lot of doubts. I guess I'd maybe say you have to listen to the doubts a little bit. There were a lot of people who had doubts about it. You have to listen to it, but I think you have to go back to still this core belief in this. We saw the trends coming. We
Right.
saw the pieces.
This is unavoidable.
Right. So you have to say, okay, there are doubts and we understand them, but we're trusting ourselves to work through those. And we also had to ask for help. That's the other thing. We had to go, as I said, already to customers. We went to NGOs, people who had criticized us. We said, can you help us make this better?
Right.
Can you hold us to a different standard? Hey, we're going to audit ourselves and share the results. So you have to trust that even if you're not there yet, and that people have doubts, that you're going to work to make it better.
It seems like this is, having gotten to know you, I think you would say I just was myself. But if I met Beth as vice chair or CMO and all of what that title puts on you, would you have felt vulnerable to say, I don't know?
Well, there was a 15-year time period from CMO to vice chair.
Okay.
So hopefully by the end of that trajectory, certainly vice chair, I hope I would have said more openly, I don't know, I need help, let's figure it out together, ask for feedback, tell me what I don't want to hear. I had to learn a lot of that.
Yeah.
So at CMO level, I was lacking confidence. I mean, I still struggle with it today, but so I think I would have probably felt like, hopefully I would have been a little more open than I'm making, but I'm not sure. I think I might have, especially because I came into the marketing role without an MBA, without a traditional marketing path. And in the early days, I was a bit, I lacked confidence about that. So I might have put on a little bit of a bravado to say, oh, Chad, no, yeah, I got that. Yeah, you might have said a term, and I'd be like, oh, yeah, yeah, I had no idea the acronym you were talking about. So those have been the things I feel quite certain I did.
Do you think maybe on the other side of that, though, a little bit, I don't know if, I don't want to put this on you if it wasn't, but was there a little chip on your shoulder of, I don't have all the degrees and I'll show you I can do it anyway?
Sure. Yeah, there was definitely that. And also just that curiosity, we keep coming back to that, where that was my way of overcoming those doubts. Well, I'm just going to learn.
Yeah.
How can I go to school in this? Who can help teach me?
Right.
So in that respect, I think there was an openness to say, teach me.
Yeah.
But I guarantee I probably would have been, in fact, I got feedback just before I got named CMO from some colleagues saying, you know, you're such a perfectionist, you come in with every idea fully baked, you don't ask for help, and frankly, we don't like working with you. It was like, ugh. So I had a great HR advisor who said, you got to go in, you got to say, I heard you, I accept the feedback, and I need your help.
Right.
I still, to this day, I get kind of sick to my stomach thinking about that moment, but I had to do that, and I had to mean it.
But can I ask, I'm going to take a different angle on that. Maybe you did have the right answer, right?
Yeah.
Maybe because you were so prepared, it was the right way to go. Did you often feel that you may have to temper some of what you were putting out there to allow others to come along?
Definitely. And I think in the times when I faltered, I almost lost my job when I went back to NBC the last time, because it was huge digital change and we became very tribal. And that was, when I look back, part of what I think I probably scared some of my colleagues off. Like, they were like, what is up with her? The fervor and the intensity of, don't you see streaming videos coming?
Right.
And we must, you know, right. And I kind of, it almost became like a religion, as opposed to working to figure it out together and people discovering it on their own. I think I was kind of scary at that. Okay. And before you know it, it's like, well, you just don't get it, do you? And so there's a bit almost of arrogance that comes out in that. And so I definitely fell into that.
Is the book club as interesting as I think? I think that would be a great, I'd love to be your sidekick on that, because I just think that you get to meet great people, interesting ideas, put these books out. Do you ever have a book that you just fundamentally thought, oh God, how am I going to get through this conversation?
No, because I try to pick, people that I read their book and I was interested in what they were saying. So somewhat self-selective. Right. I haven't done as many lately. I've been sort of taking some time off from that. But I'll give you a good example. I mean, I think it's what you're doing, right? It's what are you interested in? Who do you want to have a conversation with? You mentioned earlier empathy. I did a talk with Michael Ventura, who wrote a book, Applied Empathy. And it was just, I know Michael, he was a consultant, and yet it was as if we were having the conversation for the first time. Really? And we got a lot of good feedback because of the topic. Yep. So sometimes you just don't know I knew Michael and I knew I liked empathy, but I had no idea that he would help unlock this whole different discussion. So there's always something new you're learning. I'm compulsive. I got to just ask, what was the big key for empathy, applied empathy, that you took from him? Well, I think the key thing, two things. I think one is just you have to be a role model of it, right? You have to make room for it in your organization. So it's back to be the change you want to see, what we were talking about earlier. Right. So if you're leading a team and you have to ask good questions about your colleagues, take people out for a cup of coffee to just get to know what's on their mind. Don't just ask them, how's your sales targets coming? See ya. Get out there. What do they like to do when you're not with them? So you have to invest the time. There are a series of questions. What surprised me with some of the LinkedIn questions we were getting was, how do I convince my boss that there's a return on empathy? Really? And so I think this is part of the challenge, right? This short-termism. And people feeling that they can't express this at work. Right. So it starts, one of the things we said is maybe, you can't necessarily change your boss, but you can certainly change the dynamics of how you're asking questions, of how you interact with other people around you. And maybe you can't guarantee him a return on empathy, but you can start to show a more empathetic way, and people will start to see that. So those are some of the discussion points. As a storied executive, many years in positions where you had vendors come in and present, I'd love to just, for the audience, what have you seen the most credible salespeople that you've experienced and worked with? What have they done? How have they behaved? What were the things that made them differentiated? Well, they didn't sell in the traditional way. Back to the way you were talking, the way you were talking earlier. They didn't come in here and give me an hour presentation and tell me they're not leaving until they get the order.
Right.
They came in and asked a lot of questions. They did their homework. They had gone out and done a lot of homework about us, and they brought in information about us that maybe we didn't know or didn't know was so obvious. They took time to build the relationship over time.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I learned in my job overseeing sale and working with sales teams is, especially when something's new, that sales cycle is really long.
Right.
Because this is what you're doing. You're building a relationship, you're ferreting it out. And so the ones who come in with really good questions and don't put the pressure on the big sale,
right,
they're the ones that generally it played out, and they got to know us better than we know ourselves. And that was real value.
Wonderful. Beth, this was a complete privilege.
No,
I
thanks,
enjoyed
Jed.
it.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Thanks to you, and thanks for taking the time to dig in with your curiosity.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks.